Good morning to everybody. Welcome to another Creative Zone webinar. Reg, Tanya, Edward, thank you so much for connecting and taking part of this webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to be there here with you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So maybe just to get started, and for the panelists out there, for the attendees, to get a sense and an idea of who these incredible people that we have here with us. We have Edward Matti. He's the managing partner of CCM Consultancy, a reputed human resource development, sales, and financial services consultancy firm here in the UAE, in Dubai. I've worked with you, Edward, quite a bit in the past. We've done a few things. I know that you've been in Dubai for 10 years, so you're going to tell us a little bit more of what you've been up to and a little bit of the work that you do. Reg, again, it's a pleasure to have you. Reg Athwal is the founder, managing director of RTS Global Partners and the Athwal Family Business Academy, with 4 operating solution areas, which are advisory, education, technology, and investments. Reg, it's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thanks, Ranger.
And then Tanya, last but not least at all, Tanya Lesley is the founder of Tanya Lesley High Performance Coaching. Tanya, I also know you for quite a bit. I've seen the work that you do. I know that the work that you do is more based on one-on-one coaching. You're going to tell us a little bit about your experience and what you've been up to. But the title of today is Creating Future Leaders Post-COVID-19. Now, we all know that things have dramatically changed over the last 3 years. I think in the way that we run our companies, the way that we manage our teams. So maybe, Reg, I could start with you. How would you describe this new norm that we live in? What is this world of running companies remotely and these digital, let's say, leaders that we need to create?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit controversial right from the bat, because I think, you know, going through this situation the last few months with clients, not just in UAE, we're an international. So we deal with a lot of family businesses, entrepreneurial businesses across Africa, Middle East, and South Asia. And let me just call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
Has leadership changed? No. Has business models changed? No. There's an echo there coming there. It's quite good. It's like a Reg 2.0 speaking at the same time. So I don't know, that's not coming from me, by the way, so I don't know if someone wants to check their situation there. But you know, people say, oh, post-COVID, it's the same. Yeah, business, cash flow, business model, serve customers, serve your clients, add value, make sure you've got the right people around you. So there's nothing changed there. The only thing I think that it's doing is waking people up. That's all. It's waking people up. And maybe if you've got deficiencies in your organization or you neglected things last year or the year before that, it's now going to come to the surface and it's a reality check. You know, did you spend enough time getting in touch with your customers in 2019 and being connected with them? If you didn't, well, you're facing the consequences now. Did you assess your talent and your teams last year? Well, reality is kicking in now. So I think these are the things that I just wanted to drop in there to open up the conversation. Is there a new normal in terms of technology? Well, I did my first webinar 10 years ago. Webinars aren't new. Video conferencing isn't new. It's just, again, because of the circumstances, we've now shifted to using the technology more. And maybe technology has evolved and it's a little bit better than it was 10 years ago. You know, so more of us can use it and we're getting used to it. So there's that. And then we're human beings. You know, we do all these things and then things get better and then old habits kick in again. Greed kicks in, power kicks in, the economy shifts again. So, you know, is there a new normal or are we just going to go back to the way it was before? Because human beings are human beings. And how have we changed from 2008, 2009 recession? Have we really changed? How have we changed from the Great Depression? Have we really changed? So I'm just putting that out there. And then maybe through the rest of the panel and maybe from the attendees, participants, we'll see what else comes back.
No, that's a good comment. That's a very good point. But I guess the way that we communicate with our teams now, the way that we influence, the way that we talk to our clients, I mean, that lack of physical presence takes away certain things. I mean, I know people in certain cases are very good at the one-on-one, at the physical being there in the moment. Technology kind of creates this little gap, this bridge. So Tanya, what would you say about how we're influencing people, our teams, how we're connecting with customers in this digital world?
Yeah, I think that, yes, we are in very uncertain times, and we have these old and new challenges, and isolation is presenting a lot of challenges. So I believe that the call for leaders and leadership and the ability to bring people together is stronger than ever. And I mean, if we want to break down what leadership is in high performance, we talk about it as being in a position of special influence. And if we think about influence, it's the ability for a leader to teach people how to think, okay, to challenge people, and to be a role model. And that can mean different things. I mean, if you're a leader of a company or a team and you're challenging people, I mean, people love a challenge. They want to rise to a challenge. Okay, people are at work or they're at home and they're wanting to prove themselves. So if you're in a leadership position, give people an opportunity to shine. And in how we teach people how to think, now more than ever, people are online, they're on calls, they're looking for answers. They want them. So where are you? Are you visible in your leadership? Is that there? And are you role modeling? I mean, we believe the message when we believe the messenger. So do you walk your talk? And I think it's really important now that leaders ask themselves, yeah, well, like Reg was saying, what was I doing last year? And has that come to the fore now? And how do I address it? How do I step up? How do I turn up the volume on my leadership and how I connect people and bring people together? Because we are isolated and this could continue for some time. And we don't know how it will affect people, because this is what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with human beings in a work environment. And this affects everyone quite differently. So how are you connecting with your people? How are you giving them an opportunity to participate and to rise to a challenge and to feel valued at work? It's ultimately why we do this. A lot of people work because it gives us a sense of purpose. It gives us a reason to get up in the mornings. So as a leader, I think it's really important to exhibit these traits, you know, teach people how to think, challenge people, and role model the way. That's how I see it, Lorenzo.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Tanya. And on that topic, Edward, this feeling valued at work, maybe we can discuss a bit about corporate culture. Are things shifting on that? What is the discussion around that?
A great point. I don't know if they're necessarily shifting as much as they are shining a light on where there might have been a deficiency. So for organizations that didn't necessarily value culture, it was performance or numbers or targets, all of a sudden there's a huge spotlight on you and saying, you know, have you given this the value that it needs? And as Tanya said, there are human beings and we have to be valued as human beings. So corporate culture starts to play a bigger role. Organizations that had this as a priority, all of a sudden, obviously that's coming through. Their care for employees, their ability to connect further, their understanding of what they're going on, what's going on and what they're going through. So I think that starts to play a very different role in how we engage individuals. How do we get to the forefront of this and ensure that the corporate culture is strong? I think for organizations in the Middle East, just like everywhere else, we're seeing this with our clients in the US and Canada, where our other offices are. Today, the sense of togetherness is stronger than ever. So even for those fragmented organizations, they're actually going back and saying, can we do more now to become closer? Can we connect to people? We've been talking to clients, and we do this ourselves, where we promote coffee break Zoom meetings. No business. It's just about getting people together again for 10 or 15 minutes like you would have at the water cooler or around the coffee machine in the office. And we've got to get a little bit more creative in how we push that corporate culture further. If we don't put emphasis on this, that post-COVID that you were talking about, whether we go back to some form of norm or we start to go back to the offices, if we're not doing it now when we're distanced from one another, we are going to hurt significantly when we are finally in some form of physical space.
Right, right. To all the attendees, we have about 90 people connected. We welcome your questions. Please send us your questions. You can address them to any of the panelists, and we'll be happy to send them across and to get their feedback on your queries. Reg, I know that you are an advisor to many entrepreneurs. You have a big focus on family businesses. How are the family businesses taking this? We have a lot of people connected on this webinar. Many of us are our own clients. Our clients are typical startups, entrepreneurs. What is it that you're working on with entrepreneurs and family businesses, owned companies in the UAE right now?
Sure, yeah. Maybe just quickly as well, I think there's someone on the Q&A asking, is the chat going to be open or not? Whether that, or is everyone going to go straight to Q&A if they want to ask us questions?
We welcome everybody to put their questions on the Q&A box. And as we see them come in and we find some relevance, we open them up and we put them up. So as soon as I see some good questions out there, we will bring them on.
Perfect. And then maybe just, because there's a bit of feedback coming back, if we're not talking, maybe button, so we lose that. So to answer, there we go. No. I think that's better. Yes, it is. There we go. We've lost that feedback coming from somewhere. So to answer Lorenzo's question, let me give you a quick perspective on this. We've dealt with 126 family businesses today, anything from a small father and son business to 53 family members down to a 5th generation family business. And I think what's important to understand here is, to build a 100-year legacy family business, only 3% of family businesses survive. But that percentage is still higher than traditional corporates that end up being merged, being acquired, not in business anymore. If you look at how many businesses have been around for over 100 years. Now, why do I mention this? Because all these businesses have been through crises before. They've been through recessions before. So how can they still, especially the ones who've lasted over 100 years? There's fundamental things that they do, and I think we can learn a lot from these family business legacies. Tanya's already mentioned it. I think the ones who've been extremely successful, regardless of a crisis, already have great values. They already have a great values in terms of their culture. They communicate on a regular basis with people. They care about people. It's not that a crisis comes and now we care about people. Has your DNA suddenly changed overnight? Have you suddenly got rewired? No, because old habits and old behaviors are going to kick in again. So I think for me, having a good foundation of good values is really important. And if we do things the right way, when things go back, there'll be a lot more trust, people loyal. But if you're not doing the things that Tanya just mentioned earlier, then when the market picks up, people's resumes will be back out there. They'll be looking for a new company and they won't remain loyal with you. So there is some fundamental foundation work to be done here that you can learn from what family businesses do. The other big one is, a lot of family businesses, whatever product or service they were selling 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, may have changed. So today is a good opportunity to check, do you have something that people still need? Is there a demand for your product or service? And does it need to change? Is it time for you to experiment and try some new things? The other tip I would give you, learning from what family businesses are going through, is this deep connection from one family member to another, and expressing that to customers, which is how can we help you, not about what our product or service is, but where else can we add value where you've got problems and we can make connections for you or find ways to collaborate. So I find I've done that personally with our clients. I found ways without not earning anything from it. There's no fees involved, but looking at my Rolodex, looking at my global connection, saying, where can I connect the dots? Oh, you're in UAE, I'll expand to Pakistan, let me connect the dot. Oh, you're a client in Congo and you need rice right now, maize, because there's a shortage. Let me connect you with someone who can make that happen. So I think these are some things that are coming up from clients in terms of not only what we're doing to serve them, but there's a lot. It's about values, it's about collaboration, it's about fixing problems. It's not about your core. And all of these emotional deposits and relationship capital that's being built is going to pay off in the future. So those are a few things we need to consider.
You're muted, Lorenzo.
Sorry, guys. I was saying, are startups changing fast enough? Are they adapting to the pace that they need to change, Reg?
Truthfully, no. I still feel there's a lack of urgency. Because maybe Tanya's more experienced to talk about this as a coach, but you know, people have got doubt, confusion, they're living in a bit of fear, that they're hoping for things to change, they're waiting for someone else to maybe give them, they're waiting for government to come up with new updates. So I think there's a lot of people that are sort of lost. But then there's others who are capitalizing on the crisis, which have got a tremendous urgency, pulling teams together, saying, what can we do? Where can we innovate? What should we start next? So I think there's going to be some great businesses that come off the crisis. The same thing that happened in 2008, 2009. There were some major unicorn businesses that came off the back of that crisis. But am I seeing it across all startups? No. I think we need to get over these emotional issues as quickly as possible and not live in fear and go, right, let's start. You know, people have a fear of maybe going on a webinar or doing a Zoom meeting. They've never used some of this technology before. They've never been on Instagram or done a small video or been on YouTube to create content for their company. Don't be scared. Whoever's listening to this, don't hold back. You know, the best time to start a podcast or a YouTube channel was 10 years ago and now. And if you don't do that stuff now, you're going to miss out on the next growth cycle. So.
Yeah, good point. Now, Tanya, on that Reg was talking about, actually, we have a good question here from the attendees. It says, what sort of leadership is even applicable when you just, you know, the better or bad news to your employees, where you're just having to adjust? What kind of leadership is needed at this point for them?
Well, anytime I hear bad news, I see it as an opportunity. Now, people remember you more during times of trouble than they do in times of triumph. Because when people are low, that's when the opportunity lies to bring them together, to connect with them. And when you deliver this bad news or this low energy news, you're going to hear something back. And that's when you can start that conversation. And the conversation allows people to air their grievances, share their dreams, their worries, their pains, and is an opportunity for you as a leader to connect with them more deeply. And what Reg was saying is right. It's about the fact that we're still human. We still have the same fears. You know, will we go back and go back to our old habits and the way that we used to do things, the way our businesses used to run and how we used to show up in them? So we can capitalize on this time. People who are going to be successful will have used this time to set and create a new normal. Now, this involves thinking about and being very deliberate about how you do that and not leaving it to chance. You know, are there things that you wanted to change last year, the year before that? The year before that, I bet there are, you know, and I think that this time has also shown that we can rely on other people. Though we are separate, okay, though we are isolated, we can connect with people and even, gosh, if you're a leader, delegate something, challenge someone, teach them how you think, involve them in something. And then that will hold you in good stead for when we do go back. I mean, we're going back now, and if you're an entrepreneur, this is even more important because you're having to be self-directed. You might not have anyone that you can you know, reach out to a colleague or a peer and say, hey mate, you know, oh gosh, it's all on you. So how do you mobilize yourself? How do you surround yourself with people that will push you along the way, that will support you if you're down? You know, what is your network like? What kind of support do you have? What is your morning routine like? How do you move yourself? How do you energize yourself? How do you keep focused in a time where our hands can be idle and looking for distraction? Now, this comes down to your self-mastery. So I see this as a wonderful opportunity to set new ways of working, new habits and new practices for yourself, but also to share them with people who, guess what, want to be involved because they're looking for answers too.
Is the way we motivate our teams also changed?
Say that again, please.
Is the way we motivate our teams has also changed?
From, I guess, perhaps through isolation, slightly different. But if you've connected with your people and you know who they are, you know when to push, you know when to pull them up, you know when to raise their energy, you know when to say, okay, now just calm down, and hopefully you're in that position. Yes, it will change in the way that we do that, the mode that we do that. We can't just bump into them in the office anymore. Okay, so how are you proactively connecting with your people? And when you connect with them, you understand them more deeply. You can find out what their desires, their dreams are, and then motivate them based on that. Because as an organization and as a leader, you want to maintain that synergy, that consistency in your team. And how do you do that? Okay. And if you're super busy and have a lot going on as a leader, it's time to identify people in your organization, key players, okay, and teach them how you think, challenge them to step up, allow them to be role models, because through them, you will impact many more people than you would with the limited time and attention that you have now.
Excellent. Well, we have 100 attendees out there. We're receiving a few good questions. Please keep on sending them through and we can read them out to our panelists. Edward, we have a good question here. It says, the key challenge for SMEs that are looking to reinvent their business models is access to finance. Banks are still not ready to lend to free zone consulting companies in spite of the government packages that are being provided. Any comments on how to solve real ground level challenges that the SME sector is going through in the UAE?
I think that's a very fair comment, actually, and we've heard that from some of our smaller clients, and particularly we're set up in a free zone that tell us the announcements have been made, but I don't see where the money is. And interestingly, we've also heard that the businesses that have fought back and put forward their cases to their banks have finally now are seeing a bit of access to that, where at the very least on the application, not necessarily to the funds themselves, whether or not the banks are taking advantage of the current opportunity and with the percentage rates and so on, that's a whole other story. But I think that question has two parts to it. One is reinventing our business model. I'd be very careful if we are moving with the times and we're simply reacting to what's going on, and all of a sudden we wake up and say, my goodness, I've got to turn my business model upside down. Something might have been wrong to begin with. This is a hiccup, and a major hiccup. Don't get me wrong, we are in crisis mode, but your business model for today's world, 2020, should have been one of multi-channel, reaching people in various formats and platforms and so on. Businesses were a little bit behind the times. We saw, we've heard this enough, where if you are a restaurant and the idea of delivery was something that you thought was out of the question because you're higher end, the world has changed. So obviously, yes, in some places where businesses thought they're static and they have the ideal model or the traditional model, had to adjust very, very quickly. They had to make some very quick moves. We've seen this in and around Dubai. A lot of our high-end restaurants where we would have never seen them on a delivery app, today they're promoting it nonstop because they recognize that tomorrow, whatever that looks like, it's certainly not going to be the same scenario as today. So if you can imagine, if these businesses are thinking that way, definitely our smaller businesses, the SMEs, should have had that model. If they didn't, it's now time to make that shift. So it's not necessarily about reinventing, but it's looking at where is the opportunity right now at minimal cost also, because now is not the time also to start to take on significant amounts of business debt in order to reinvent. It's one thing to adjust, to adapt to the current situation, but also it's about being wise financially and not looking at that additional debt where when we are moving forward, all of a sudden we're finding ourselves servicing debt that we shouldn't have had to begin with, or is absolutely well beyond our capabilities. So I would urge a lot of SMEs to look inwards, as much as keep fighting with the banks and keep making your case that you need some help, you need some support. I would rather that they do that than they start terminating great people in panic mode. And we have seen that where layoffs are coming out there unnecessarily rather than looking at other ways. We've got great talent and our responsibility is to them, their families, their livelihoods. These are individuals that have given of themselves for years to us, and it's our turn now to also give back during times of crisis. And people will probably blow your mind with how much they're willing to give. Again, going back to your question about culture, and if that connectivity is there. So right now, I would urge SMEs, look inwards, see where your talent is, where your capabilities are, shift people around. I'll tell you, even us as an organization, as we serviced our clients through our digital offering and virtual programs and so on, while we've had them for a very long time, obviously they've come front and center. What this crisis has done for an organization like ours is we've uncovered talents within our own teams that we wouldn't have gone asking about. They were sensational and still sensational at what they do, what their primary responsibility is. And all of a sudden, when we have been having these casual talks, they're coming forward and saying, oh, I'd love to do this. I'd like to create video. I'd like to do that. Where did this all come from? And you'll find that within, even if your team is a team of 3 or a team of 30 or 300, you will find talent where you didn't even expect it. And people will jump at the opportunity today to prove that they've got worth to the organization, to prove to the leadership that I can and I will. And that's what we have to focus on. So finance is good. It is important. And some businesses desperately need it. Go for it. But also don't think about reinventing as opposed to slightly adjusting your business model and your markets, and look inwards to where the talents exist. And I suspect that many organizations, no matter how small, would truly surprise themselves of what they have in capabilities within the organization itself.
Excellent, very good point. Reg, to you, if you were to list 2 or 3 industries that you'd rather not be in right now, and 2 or 3 industries that you would jump on these coming weeks to set up a new company, what would those be?
I don't have a crystal ball. I mean, I try to keep things very, very simple when we're working with our clients. So for me, it doesn't matter what industry it is. If you look at something that's a problem and you think that industry is going to suffer, well, that's an opportunity. Okay. If I take a client of mine in Kenya that has a 5-star hotel, they've completely innovated how they're utilizing their rooms in their hotel. How they're outsourcing different services by utilizing the assets they have in the hotel. So for me, it's not about good or bad. Are you trying to tell me that people aren't going to travel again in the future? Of course they are. Are people going to go back to hotels? Of course they are. Are people going to go to restaurants again? Of course they are. Are people going to require financial services, banking services? Of course they are. So I don't think none of these things are going to go. I think it's more about, I'm a left-brain person logically. So for me, for the SME question that you asked Edward, let's go through the basics. It doesn't matter what industry. Whatever business you're in right now, is there still for what you do? Yes, no. Is there demand? Yes, no. No, there's no need, there's no demand. Okay, well, you're dead. All right? Someone's put in the Q&A, but you need finance. I don't have the money. Well, no, you don't. Actually, you don't. I've built many startups over in my career. You can bootstrap a business with nothing. You've just got to be creative. You've got to use your resources and someone else's resources. So for example, I've got a mastermind group with 12 other great entrepreneurs around the world. We speak every couple of weeks. All of us have our database of 100,000 people on social media and our private databases and whatever. Well, so if I've got something, can I collaborate with somebody else? This is the time for collaboration. You don't need to employ thousands of people. It's about alliances. It's about collaboration. Maybe if I speak to Edward and Tanya off the back of today's conversation, Creative Zone, we're already in touch, but maybe between the three of us, we could solve another problem in the marketplace by bringing resources together, by collaborating. So going through the need, demand, yes, no, don't have money, don't need it, okay? Go and collaborate with others. And by the way, there's other people out there with money, but they don't have the ideas, okay? You don't think that money is run out. There's trillions of dollars out there sitting in people's bank accounts, okay? Ultra high net worth individuals that are just waiting, patiently waiting for the next great opportunity to be presented to them. So it's not about the money, okay? Then we get down to industries. Can you solve a problem? What's the problem? Can you do things faster? Like Edward's example of delivery. Can you do it better? Can you create more convenience for the consumer? Could technology be used to enable you to do that? Maybe it's not about technology. So these are questions that you have to ask and get answers to. And if you do that, you start creating a model, and literally you can create your next $1 million revenue stream.
Right, right. On that topic, I was, I think, reading an article yesterday that was showing that Zoom, this platform that we're on, was worth more money on market capitalization than the 7 biggest airlines in the world right now, which kind of makes you realize, this change, this shift in power kind of thing. But Edward, there's another good question here that has come up that says, is there any advice you could give for launching a new company during the pandemic? What tips could you give, Edward, to people that are launching their businesses nowadays?
I think Reg hit it dead on, and maybe a bit of that left brain and right brain. The left brain, I think Reg covered very well. It is a logical element. Launching a business, it's one thing for us to follow our passion. And for a lot of us, we come up with an idea, we're sitting at home, we say, oh my goodness, this would be an amazing business. And in our head, or more so in our heart, it makes perfect sense. And we get excited and we feel the emotions rushing through, and that's wonderful. Because if people are not doing what they're passionate about, it's a terrible state to live through. And I know for some it's a necessity, but for those of us that have the opportunity to do what we love, then that's fantastic. But there are far bigger questions to ask ourselves, and business has to respond to a need. And it has to be that you're able to do it better, faster, more effective than someone else out there. Otherwise, it's just another business. In some industries, depending on what that question was or about a particular business or industry that they're looking for, you could say the more the merrier. Competition is healthy. It actually it levels up our game when we've got more and more players within there. But in other industries, in many industries, you're walking into a crowded marketplace to offer the same thing, just in a different package. And that's not necessarily the right thing to do. So there is maybe a lot more thought that has to go into that today. Are we looking to innovate? Are we looking to do something different? Is there a gap that we've identified in the marketplace that I can fill with that? Today, it is about the go-to market on a quick basis. Those long cycles, I don't think people have the same, unless you're financially comfortable, where you start up a business or launch a business, but you have the privilege or the advantage of waiting 2 or 3 or 4 years for it to kick off. Very few people are in that scenario. So that means you whatever you're starting off with, whatever capital you have, you need it to get to work for you very, very quickly. And if you can find that gap in the market, or you can find that demand or that efficiency that you can do better, maybe even bigger, and you're marrying that with something you're passionate about, then certainly it's definitely an opportunity that you have to go for. Entrepreneurship is a dream of many people that we come across, and that's fine, that's wonderful. It has to make sense though. It may be the dream, but it may not be practical in application, and I think people have to weigh in both sides of that coin.
Excellent, thank you for that, Edward. Tanya, I have a question for you here. We have a question from the audience. It says, Is it a good approach in present times to focus more on retaining the customer base of my business or focus on developing new customers? What should be the focus for business owners right now?
Well, we know the perils of focusing on just one. So definitely keep both. You have a lifetime value in an investment that you've already made in your existing customers. You don't want that to go away just because you might be changing focus. And if you need help, ask for help so that you can cover both, because your pipeline is going to be just as important. Not only engaging future generations, you might be adding, your business has changed, so you're adding products and services. So how are you going to acquire or get in front of the people that need to see that? And so you need to take care of both. You need to take care of your whole house, okay, and the people that are doing that for you. A point that both Reg and Edward made was about being creative. Now, I've had some thoughts about that, because in this time where it is so uncertain and we're not sure what's going on, we can have a tendency to go into fear and into fear-based thinking. I don't have the money, the banks will never lend it to me, I've done this, I've done that, it hasn't worked, I'm just not sure, will I waste my time if I do all of this and the grass isn't greener? Will I be embarrassed and I don't have the effect? So if you find yourself in a challenging spot, it's essential that you get yourself to a place of creative free thinking. And how can you do that? Well, stress. So fear is stress. I'm almost saying the words because they're very related. Fear is an emotion that's related to the future, something that hasn't happened yet. So how are you minding your thoughts? How are you releasing fear? Are you waking up late, as an entrepreneur or as someone in business because you're unsure about how to plan your day or what to stay motivated by? So minding your energy, minding your thoughts is really important. Is a really important practice, and to make sure that you have times in your day where you're releasing stress, okay? Because when you're in stress, you're in probably survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, different parts of your brain are flooded with blood and energy, and it's not the part of your brain that allows creative thinking, because you're flying, okay, or you're running away. So that's not able to stimulate those creative juices. And so when you have problems put to you, or you can't think of a creative idea, recognize that as just a block. You need to flood that part of your brain, neurologically, physically, with energy, and that starts with releasing your stress and quelling those fears.
Right. On this topic, actually, I had a question prepared for you, Tanya. This issue of corporate wellness, maintaining healthy corporations. Of course, some people are going through some tough times right now with this situation. How do you keep healthy corporations and overall corporate wellness throughout the company nowadays?
So we were talking earlier about how this time has proven that we have humans in business, okay? And so health and wellness should be something that businesses focus on, and to take a holistic approach and perspective to your people and talent. And unwellness costs industries around the world millions and millions of dollars. So what are we doing to support people? And corporate and being well, it goes back to, we were talking about stress, we know that stress is something that is manageable and preventable and holds us in good stead for creating and maintaining corporate wellness. And so what do we know about stress? We know that stress is something that builds up. It builds up in the mind and it comes out in the body, and it's explained very visually by someone experiencing a nervous breakdown, or a panic attack or an anxiety attack. And that's so far unwell. So if stress is something that builds up, as an organization, how are you helping your people to empty that stress cup? Okay, because managing stress and relieving anxiety is not something that we're taught at school or in higher education, or even, so we would rely on our networks and our parents to teach us how to do that. Okay, if they knew how to do that, I guess everyone's doing the best they can with the knowledge and time that they have now, right? But so as someone in that leadership position, You know, how are you educating people? Do you have programs in place teaching how and when to relieve stress, to recognize it? Are you giving it airtime? Do you give it priority? Okay, are you on the lookout when people are stressed? Now, there is some level of a duty of care that we have for our people. And I think that communication is essential, not only of, you know, just having open channels for being able to have that kind of 360 communication, but to also talk about your expectations around how those communication channels are used and what you expect to hear. And also, like we were talking about earlier, being a role model. So if people are unsure or, you know, kind of walking on eggshells about how to talk about stress or wellness, they're embarrassed or don't want to appear weak, you know, it might take that leader to say, it's okay to feel stressed. Why should I feel stressed? It's a good sign. It means you want to do a good job. It becomes bad, okay, when it's preventing you from getting up in the morning or being able to do that presentation or be your best self. So how can we do that with you?
Right. Reg, is this something that comes up in the discussions that you have with the business owners that you work with, family-run businesses?
What, stress?
Well, stress, the issue of corporate wellness, trying to bring or keep back, you know, healthy corporations.
Majority, no. I would refer to the 80-20 sort of principle. 80% of them, that's not top of mind for them. Should it be? Yes, you know, but bottom line is most of them are thinking about, there's only, you know, in summary, one key thing: cash flow. So that's priority. It's survival. You know, for some people, it's about survival. So the most important thing is, what's the inflow coming in right now? Let's look at the worst case and the best case, maybe to answer the question on the Q&A. Someone's asking about recession. Will there be a recession? You know, I say, wake up every day like there is going to be a recession. Wake up every day like there is going to be a recession, because if you're mentally ready for a recession, because it will come at some point. If you look at history from the early 70s, there's a recession every 7 to 10 years on average.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes we recover within a year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes it takes longer to bounce back. So we should, you know, we've had good times, and Western economies have had great 10-year period. So it's only a matter of time. I mean, if you've got people like Coca-Cola losing 25% of their revenue in Q1 of this year, okay, what do you think happens when their earning reports come out? In the next quarter, all the earning reports that come out, you're going to see a lot of businesses, apart from maybe the big technology companies, where you're going to see, wow, they're down 20%, 25%, 35%, 50% of their revenue. Now, if that's cash flow never came into the business, and therefore you're struggling with your outflows to pay people or delaying people, or debt is being increased, then isn't it inevitable that there's going to be a recession? How long it's for, we don't know. Now, will it have an impact on UAE and other markets? Well, we're not going to get into that conversation, because there's lots of other things you have to take into consideration. Oil, other things. Expo 2020 not happening, and billions of dollars not coming into the country end of this year, early next year, waiting an entire year. So, you know, these are things. So going back to your question about stress or wellness, 80% of them, cash flow. Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. Cash flow survive. We've got money coming back in. We can go to our employees and look after them again and then rebuild. In most cases, people, you know, I know of one client who's wiped 50% of their workforce. Gone. But from a spiritual point of view, because I know he's a very spiritual person, in his mind, every person, when he let them go, he said, I'm sorry, forgive me. But when the business picks up, I want to keep the door open for you again. But at this stage, we need to survive as a business. I'm sorry. Yeah. So going back to what Tanya was saying, maybe there's an approach there required as well. Even when, I think someone mentioned in the Q&A, when you have to give the bad news, there is still a way of giving the bad news and dealing with it yourself. But stress, Wellness, yeah, everyone's got stress, but you know, people are really good leaders and know how to handle the stress. I would say the leader needs to take out time first to then be able to deal with their soldiers. If the commander-chief is not in the right state of mind, and you're going to go into battle, how are you going to give directions to your soldiers and your tribe and your army if you haven't taken time out for yourself? But if you're living in fear as a leader yourself, or you've got doubt and confusion, you've lost it, because you're automatically going to express that to your organization. Sorry if I'm going in different directions. My brain does that.
I think it's all connecting. And Edward, I'd like to hear your point of view. What is this sort of the ingredients of this leader? I mean, we're talking about the leader having that sort of trust to face, you know, people are having to make some tough decisions right now. And whether we call it stress or we're thinking about cash flow, but that really represents a personality on how you're handling these things.
I think going back to what we talked about earlier also, I think if there's anything that's being shed a light on right now, it's poor leadership. The micromanagers are in a bit of trouble right now. They're the idea of constantly creeping up in your office and, you know, looking over your shoulder, they've lost that. And heaven forbid, the idea of 20 calls a day or 20 Zoom calls to look at what you're doing, that doesn't exist. And so poor leadership or poor management is out there for everybody to see. It might have, you know, they might have gone under the radar. There was too much going on. Times were good. Nobody was asking questions. And all of a sudden right now, everybody, it's much more visible, even though we're distanced and we're not in the same place. So I think there's a lot that's there. Without a doubt, I think that we hear the word resilience coming out a lot. And I think these are the times for that resilient leader, be it on corporate wellness, where we still deliver, we had been, and I think more so now, a variety of programs on corporate wellness, not because people were looking for those Zen moments. I think it's often misunderstood, but that ability to de-stress, to focus, to put the energy where it's necessary, that keeps going on. Leaders' resilience that I'm talking about also comes from when when they're worried about cash flow that Reg is talking about, when they're worried about the numbers and what's happening, or they have to break bad news, they have the sense of mind and they have the sense of empathy on how to do this properly. I don't think anybody out there is shocked if their organization calls them up and says, listen, we have to let you go. You got to pick up any news piece today and you'll see the numbers that are coming out there, from the small to the absolute largest organizations that are out there. So it's not a surprise for anybody. If anybody gets a call like that and they're shocked, they're clearly not connected to what's going on in the world today. However, the responsibility falls on the leader in how we provide that information. Are they empathic leaders? Are they resilient in taking in all of the negativity that's going on, all of that stress, staying up nights, worrying about cash flow, and they turn that back into their teams? They're not hiding the information. I'm a big proponent of open, clear, and honest communication when it comes to our teams. So there's information that's coming in from the outside world. Are we able to effectively shield them from that? Contextualize it for them, making sure that it's not all over the place. They don't think that all hell's broken loose, that the end is near, but rather they see where is that impact on our business, and then group together to see what can we do and move forward. And will there be times that we have to focus, we have to deliver bad news? Absolutely. There are effective ways to do that, and we have to deliver that. So really it is about almost reskilling leaders. Right now we've been reskilling just about everybody. Salespeople who never thought they'd have to pick up a phone and have phone conversations. They got used to automation and online, and all of a sudden they have to re-engage. Leaders who have to realize that empowering your team is a beautiful thing, and you can get so much more rather than micromanaging them, and now's the time to prove that. So everybody needs some form of reskilling, even the concept of empathy, and we have to be able to exude that and convey it to our teams in these times. It is no different from our customers. I know the question earlier on about focusing on your existing customers and so on, and I always remind people, your existing your best customers today are also your competitor's best prospect. And if you're not protecting these relationships, if you're not looking after them in these times, that you're abandoning them because you want a new dollar somewhere else, you've got something wrong with your business model to begin with. So it is that balance that's there. And that too comes from leaders, creating that right vision. And that's where it all starts. And then the way that we communicate it with that empathy, with that resilience, that's what's going to win the fight at the end of this.
Excellent. Reg, I have a question directed to you. It says, what would you say is the difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's good. There's a lot of people out there that think that they're good entrepreneurs, and realities they're not. They're technically just self-employed people who have put themselves into their own job, okay, and employing themselves. And essentially, lots of people out there are one-man band type business, but call themselves entrepreneurs. That's not an entrepreneur, okay? So, a true entrepreneur is someone who is starting new things, does take risks, knows how to build startups, okay? Eventually that will involve building up the client customer base. It will involve employing people, maybe with the new models for the future. That doesn't have to be all full-time employees. It could be freelancers, it could be people from different countries collaborating, but they're growing something, they're building something. But most entrepreneurs I've met, and I've been there myself, is, most entrepreneurs have this DNA of innovating, starting things, getting bored, love adventure, love to be spontaneous, want to get involved in something new. I've seen this trait over and over again with entrepreneurs. So, and then you've got an owner. If I take some of the best business owners I've come across, they've got that balance of entrepreneurship, but they're very good with money. Okay, true owner is like an investor, and they take calculated risks. If you take Warren Buffett today, is he an entrepreneur or a business owner? I mean, what has he started? What's he ever invented? Nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing, but he's worth $50 billion. Why? Because he's a great business owner.
Yeah.
He's a great investor.
Yeah.
And I think the real dream team is to have both.
Mm.
You've got to have someone in the team who's who's got the entrepreneurial Steve Jobs, type character. And then you need the Warren Buffett who's sitting behind you as your mentor, where once the money starts coming in, they decide what's going to happen with it in the future. Because if it goes back to the entrepreneur, they're going to blow it on the next venture. They'll blow it on the next crazy idea.
And I think that structure kind of happens with us at Creative Zone. I mean, us internally, and I think we have a bit of all of those worlds. But
definitely
a comment. It's 11:57. We have 3 minutes left. Tanya, I would like to ask you, what would be your final comment to close this session? What would be your tips, your recommendations? What are you going to be focusing on yourself in the next 1 or 2 months to come?
So in terms of tips, it's, so this session has been about leadership. But just because you might not have a leadership role, a leadership badge or title, does not mean that you aren't a leader and that you don't have the ability to influence. So if that's something that you want to do, start doing it now. Don't wait for someone to ask you to do it. Don't wait for someone to challenge you. Challenge yourself to step up. And if you are a leader, take stock. How are you showing up? And are you role modeling in the best way? In terms of what I'm focusing on, it's helping people do that now, especially during this time. Disruption is fantastic for changing old habits and building new ones. And so I'm going to capitalize my time and invest my time in doing that now, whether that's through one-on-one coaching, group programs, online training, because I believe I believe in the power of coaching, which literally means to carry or to transport someone from A to B. So from where they are now and where they want to be. Everyone has dreams and goals and desires. So that's what I want to help people do now.
Excellent. Thank you, Tanya. Edward, your final comments for this session?
I think it would be the fact that there is a present and there is a future. I think Reg alluded to this. This is not the first time that we have had a crisis of sorts. It's in a different form. Yes, in 2008, 2009, you could see it, and it was a monetary scenario that we were dealing with, or an economic scenario that you can fix with monetary policy. Here we feel a little bit lost. We feel it was so abrupt. We weren't ready. We didn't know. So I think right now there's an opportunity for us to reflect inwards, to take stock of where we are, and keep that eye out on the future. It's not. If I've told anybody and everybody these days from our clients, now is not the time to let up. It is not the time to slow down. It is not the time to sit back and say, find ourselves, when we talk about that change curve, that second phase of change is often resistance. And today I'm seeing resistance from people who say, but soon it'll come back to normal. Soon it'll come back to normal, and I'll just wait it out, and we're not doing ourselves any favors. So look inwards, look for that strength within, the opportunities that are there, and just plow further. Look to explore different ways, new ways, learn skills, go for it. Small business, large businesses. We have untapped potential no matter who you are in this world. I've been talking to some of our hospitality clients who are unbelievably reinventing their ways. Even aviation is looking at thinking different, and small businesses will thrive if they've got that right mindset and they're looking forward. So it's that eye on the future while looking inwards to take stock at what more can I do, because I'm simply not doing, I'm not living up to that potential that I've got.
That's excellent. Thank you, Edward, for that.
You're welcome.
Reg, your final thoughts? We have 100 people connected.
Yeah, a few things maybe, and also, there are some other really good questions that have come up from the participants. So maybe, some of you reach out to us through Creative Zone. We'll see if we can answer some of those other questions for you and support you, because I always feel it when someone's, taken time to ask us a really good question. We haven't answered it. So very quickly, COVID, I'll use it as an acronym. C, collaboration. Okay, find ways of collaborating with people. O, openness. Have complete openness, transparency, communication at a family level, leadership level, workforce level. For me, the V would be around vision. Rethink about your vision for the future, where you want to be, where you want to end up. There's a great time to think about that and brainstorm that. The I is about innovation. You've got to do something new, okay? Come up with new ideas would be the other I. And the D is development, learn new skills. You've got to develop yourself. As I had a good friend of mine just recently, Graham Codrington, who I interviewed. It's on my YouTube channel. I'll just mention here very quickly, and I'll send this to you if you want. He said, these are the eight skills that you need to develop: emotional intelligence, diversity and social intelligence, horizon scanning and what-if thinking, adaptive intelligence and problem solving, creativity and intuition, curiosity and storytelling, entrepreneurship and innovation, and being tech savvy. So these are skills that we need to develop as part of the new normal for the future. The last things I want to leave you with, some of my favorite books from my library. Tough Times Never Last, but Tough People Do. Read that book, okay, if you want to learn about survival, resilience, determination. The Rise of the Robots, okay, if you want to learn about business models and innovation. And if you want to get your mindset right to track you all day long, read this book. Now, to save you time, here's my plug. Go to Reg Athwal, my name, .tv, or take you straight to my YouTube channel. Go down to book videos, and you can watch all 3 book videos on these 3 books. 5 to 10 minute videos on my opinions and thoughts on the book. And if you go to regatwal.com, it'll go to my bio, but you'll see an article that I wrote of 9 things that you can do to transform your business as a leader. So that's a bit of take-home value. Go and check them out. And thank you very much to Creative Zone, not just for the opportunity, but also helping my son, who's 23 years of age, who's got his own e-commerce business, and he got his license through Creative Zone as support. So thank you.
Thank you, Reg, for that. and for that wonderful last piece. Definitely, we would like to encourage all the attendees to reach out to this incredible panel that we have here, these incredible coaches, advisors. You can reach to them through LinkedIn. Nowadays, LinkedIn lets you reach to all of you. We're going to be sharing the database of the people connected here to the panelists, so feel free to reach out to them and open discussions with them. And on our platform, we would like to share a copy of this article, Reg, that you are proposing. We're going to post the entire video of this webinar, and we would like to post some of your articles. I know, Tanya, that you worked also in a couple of articles recently that we would be very happy to share with our audience. And Edward as well, we would like to really keep on looking at ways of collaborating with you and the work that you do. So once again, to everybody, to the panelists, to the attendees, thank you so much for being there. It's been a great webinar. And to the panelists, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts at Creative Zone for what you've done today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lorenzo.
Thank you,
Creative Zone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Bye.